I'd like to begin with you. Now, children continue to be disproportionately affected by armed conflict in many parts of the world. But when we talk about child soldiers, how is the impact of this different than a child who is living through conflict?
Yeah, so I think, thank you first of all for dedicating the time for this. And I think given the high number of conflicts in this region, we have seen an increase, a significant increase in the number of children who are fighting. That is the case in places like Syria, but also in places like Sudan and Yemen, and to a lesser extent in Iraq.
Right, and you're saying numbers continue to increase. I also talked about how an agreement has been made between governments, how governments have tried to pledge that they will reduce these numbers. Yet we're seeing these numbers continuously increase. Why do you think that is?
Because of the conflicts. I mean, the armed conflicts in the places I mentioned have meant that more families, in fact, have become poorer. And one of the reasons why families push their children to be recruited into the fighting is the socioeconomic situation. In many cases, families cannot make ends meet in places like Yemen, like Syria, like Sudan. And so there is an economic factor to why children are pushed into armed conflict.
Right. Of course, it's a very complex sort of a situation, one that has many factors leading to the end result. I'd like to talk to Mr. Oid about South Sudan. As Ms. Toma mentioned, that we are seeing numbers expand within Sudan. UNICEF also reported that at least 19,000 child soldiers still remain to be within Sudan. What do you think are factors unique to this region that are contributing to military ranks continuously absorbing child soldiers?
Yeah, there are many factors. You know, if we are talking about child soldiers in Sudan and South Sudan, there are very many factors. It may need me to go a little bit back in time. For example, the 21 years war between the southern region and the northern Sudan was actually, you know, something that took so many years. So many people in the southern region joined the fighting, and children also, some joined voluntarily, some because they lost their parents, they didn't have anybody to take care of them. They went and joined, you know, the military, and they were fighting. That's why there was a name for the child soldiers, which was known as Red Army or Jesh Amer in Arabic in the Sudan here. Now, some of those people have now grown up, they have become adults, they are men and women. But even in the current conflict where, you know, for 5 years South Sudan has been at war with itself, beginning from 2013, so many children have also been pushed to join the armed groups. Some joined voluntarily because they lost their parents, they didn't have anyone to take care of them, they saw their parents being killed, and they joined as a means to, you know, also carry out some form of revenge. Some were abducted. They were not willing to join the armed groups, but they were abducted. At first, they objected to this, but, you know, as time went on, some of them became used to this because they found some kind of freedom. If you wanted something, you could take by force. Yeah. So yes, those are some of the factors that push actually many here to go and join these armed groups. And if I may continue. Now, as the peace agreement was signed in 2018, now, there are provisions in the peace agreement. For example, like the soldiers of the opposition are supposed to be kept in some camps known as cantonment sites. Now, opposition and all parties started, you know, recruiting more as people moved to the camps, so that, you know, the tyranny of number. Somebody wants to say that we have this number of soldiers. They don't care whether they are children, whether they are adults. So they were just recruiting people to make sure that they have the numbers, so that they say, you know, we have a big force, so you need to give us a big portion in the government. So this also, according to United Nations Human Rights Commission in South Sudan, they have reported that this peace process, the fact of people getting cantoned in the sites, have also forced some armed groups to continue to recruit children. Not only that, even at the present moment in Sudan and South Sudan, there are wars going on. There are groups that are not party to the current peace agreement, and they are actually still recruiting people, including children. So it's a big factor in this region.